All right, thank you everyone for joining. My name is Jared Oring, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Voltagrid Technologies, a startup that incorporated this year, about 2 months ago, to provide quick deploying, fully mobile, scalable, clean microgrid solutions. So we deploy intelligent, clean, affordable power at the 2.5 to 25 megawatt range. The purpose of this session, as I'm quickly learning that starting a business can simultaneously seem straightforward as well as very complicated. And so I have a clear idea of market that we want to serve and the vision for that technology. And so what I'm really looking forward to asking our panel of founders and funders is how they overcame the challenges of starting their own businesses and identifying the partners who help them scale to market. We want to encourage all of our participants to submit questions using the Q&A panel down at the bottom. And I'll start the session with my own questions. And then after we start asking a few questions, we'll ask the panel to answer the questions that you submit using the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. So look for that Q&A question and please submit all of your questions. Now I'm pleased to introduce Joe Fowler, who is the former president and co-founder of Stress Engineering Services, a 400-person engineering consulting firm based in Houston, with offices in Cincinnati, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Calgary. SES is a world leader in floating systems designs, fit-for-service evaluations, customer and product mechanical design, measurement and control systems, and third-party testing of full-scale systems and equipment. Thank you, Joe, for joining us. We're pleased to have you here.
Thank you, Jared.
Paul Stevenson is the Executive Vice President of McCormick Stevenson, is employee number 5 in a firm that's grown to 45 plus people. McCormick Stevenson specializes in delivering mechanical engineering services to the aerospace, defense, and homeland security industries, everything from routine drafting to complex systems engineering. Paul, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Jared. Very excited to be here.
Now, prior to joining ASME as its Chief Strategy Officer, Michael Johnson was the Managing Partner and CEO of Johnson Williams Capital Partners, an investment firm partnering in innovators and entrepreneurs in technology, healthcare, biopharma, and sustainability. Michael formerly served in executive roles with Svelte Medical Systems, PJ Morgan Chase, African Continental Telecommunications, and the National Football League, and AT&T. Michael, we're pleased to have you here. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Jason, my pleasure. Jared, my pleasure. I'm looking forward to having a great session.
So for our first question, I'm going to go to Joe. Nathan and I and our other partner, Chris, we came up with the idea for Voltagrid from our previous experiences and seeing that there was a need in the market in the oil and gas industry for clean, intelligent power to help electrify the oil industry. How did you come up with the concept of SES, and how did that come to you?
Yes, well, it started when I was in graduate school at Texas A&M. And so I had the honor and pleasure of working with some professors there in their consulting practice. And so these companies would come to these professors when they were stumped on a real hard technical problem. And myself and other graduate students were like the workers. And I really enjoyed the work. And so because I enjoyed the work so much, I decided that I would stay and get a PhD. And then I worked for Texaco for a few years and in the field, and then myself and 2 other gentlemen, one of whom was one of my professors, started Stress Engineering Services. And so at first, the kind of work we were doing was certified stress reports for nuclear power plants. And we did that until the late 70s when those went away. And then we started doing work for the offshore industry. My PhD was a model of a floating oil containment barrier, so I knew how to make models of marine riser systems, and so we had the first commercial software for that. So the thing is, it's the work that I enjoyed, and it's the fact that the work is highly technical. It really doesn't matter what industry it's in. It's the work and your competence to do it, and the fact that when the clients come to you, or when you find the clients, they really need your help, and so they're not worried so much about money. They're worried about getting their product going or getting their production line going. So it's kind of a process. Life is a path dependent journey. And so my path was, I was exposed to the consulting business as a young engineer, and deliberately chose to make it my profession, because I could see that it would be a good business for a very long time.
Thank you so much, Joe. Paul, NextGrid's at the point where we're hiring those, or Voltagrid's at the point where we're hiring those first pivotal team members. As a very early hire who quickly became a partner at the firm, how did your first hires affect businesses and direction in your eventual success?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jared. And I think it really gets to the heart of one of the biggest challenges that a small business or startup faces when getting started. So for me, it's impossible to overestimate the importance of those early hires. You really need people who drink the Kool-Aid. And I strongly encourage every small business at the start to make sure that your mission is clear. What are you trying to accomplish as an organization? What are your short-term and long-term goals? And so during that interview process, it's so critical to make sure that the people that you're interviewing are aligned with that mission and understand your goals and are passionate about it. You really also need, people who are agile. You heard Dr. Burton during the keynote, hopefully everyone participated in that, say that, small business is chaotic. And I like to use the term messy. Small businesses, when they start up, don't have a lot of processes and procedures. There's no written daily activities. You really need people that are agile and can react on the fly to whatever is thrown at you. And then I think the final thing that is critical is character and commitment. And that's really hard to evaluate during an interview process. So what was successful for us, and this is kind of the best scenario, is early in the formation of our company, we networked a lot. ASME was a great playground for that, to go to ASME meetings here locally, meet other engineers. And so we were really prospecting candidates without them even really realizing they were being prospected. So our first few critical hires were people that we knew fairly well. We had interacted with them at ASME events or other networking events. We had gotten to know them, and so we're better able to evaluate their character, their commitment, and all of those soft things that are really hard to get out of an interview. So, really at the end of the day, it's about building a strong foundation for your organization that will allow for that future growth. Picture if you're a 9-person firm that's looking to hire that milestone 10th person. And if you make a wrong decision on that hire, you immediately have lost 10% of your productivity, right? You've got one person on the team that is not pulling their weight. And probably why you went to hire is because you suddenly find yourself with more work than you can handle. So if that individual isn't a good fit right out of the gate, then you're losing efficiency, but you also run the risk of losing this new client that puts you in that hiring position in the first place. So it's extremely critical, Jared.
Thank you so much. Michael, Voltagrid has just finished a family and friends round of searching for supporting capital for our equipment build. As one of the founders, I also put my own money to help support salaries and other expenses. When is the right time to pursue outside funding? And does that timing vary by industry or type of company?
I would say that you should look at investors. Investors are probably grouped into two groups. There are financial investors and there's strategic investors. And I think they range depending on where you're at in whatever your product life cycle is. So generally speaking, your more strategic investors are going to be at the latter part of your development stage because they want to make sure that you got a commercially viable product. Where some of your early adopters, friends and family, as you mentioned, early angel investors are really trying to get in early on a particular transaction. And they want to make sure that, you know, they're looking at either new emerging technologies or something that's going to be substantially beneficial for them financially, and they're typically financial investors. So generally speaking, what we did, or what we did do, when we looked at, we were a light cycle investor. We were not an early investor, an early adopter. We wanted to make sure that people had a commercially viable product before we made investments.
Thank you, Michael. One of the things that we've tried really hard at Voltagrid to do is to de-risk the investment for our investors with contracts, both on the customer side as well, the exclusivity agreements on the supplier side, letters of intent and other things like that, to help investors see that it's not just an idea, but that there's proof behind it. What sort of things would help de-risk for a potential investor like you?
I think ultimately, you know, you can clearly, from a perspective of an investor, at the end of the day, I'm investing in you. I'm investing in you and your ability to execute a particular business. And so what I focus in on, and my major thought process is, do I believe you have the capability to deliver on what you're going to say you're going to deliver on, or you have the capacity to put the right people around you that's going to allow you to execute. So yeah, there are things you can do to contracts, exclusive agreements to demonstrate that you have a viable product, but it really comes down to, can you execute? And I think that's where I tended to focus in running my business. I tended to focus on, do I have confidence in Jared? And if I have confidence in Jared, then I can work with him to get all the things around him that's going to help him be successful. But I needed to believe in you as an individual and your ability to execute.
Thank you so much. Paul, did McCormick and Stevenson always have its focus on defense and homeland security?
No, we did not. So I joined the firm in 2001, a couple of years after my business partners, Noel and Melissa McCormick, founded the firm, and became a partner about a year later. But we were hungry. We were a very small business at that time, 4 or 5 employees, and we would do virtually anything to keep the doors open. We worked in the heavy industrial space with companies like Caterpillar and Club Car. We worked in medical, in consumer products. And then we really, since Noel and I cut our teeth in our early careers in the defense aerospace market, we did a lot of work in that space as well.
Thank you. How did you decide when these different opportunities came? How did you decide which ones to lean more towards?
Well, again, early on, it was like we take on virtually anything. But about 7 years or 8 years into our firm's history, because Noel and I had come from the defense aerospace market, that was where we did our best work. You know, mechanical engineering principles apply to virtually any product development, regardless of industry. But every industry is regulated differently, right? ASME, provides a lot of service in the area of standards. And so understanding the standards that drive your industry is critical to successful product design. So defense aero was really where we were most comfortable. So about 7 years in, we said, look, we really need to focus. We need to step back and start doing what we do best. And so it was a conscious decision. It was not an easy decision because, again, we were relatively small then. And so to turn away clients that weren't as good a fit for us was a challenge. But as soon as we focused and stuck to the defense aero market, our revenues, our growth trajectory just took off. It's been the best decision that we've made in the history of our company, and we've done really well as a result.
Thank you so much. At Voltagrid, one of the challenges that we're trying to overcome is that in electrifying the oil field, power generation is not a cheap option. And so in one industry, electric powered hydraulic fracturing, a lot of companies are struggling with the capital to raise all of the power generation equipment. And so that unexpected challenge ended up helping us by giving us the opportunity to decouple power from services, and helped our customers to greatly reduce their capital costs by shifting that to our balance sheet. Joe, did you have any unexpected challenges that ended up helping your company's development?
Well, yes. You know, throughout the years, we've had many industries we worked in, but you know, at Stress, our staff is 2/3 PhDs, so we always have had very high technical abilities and weren't afraid of anything. So nuclear power plants, that was a really good business until it went away, but the offshore industry was a really good business. It still is a really good business, not as good as it was, but in the 80s, we had our first downturn, and we started working for Procter & Gamble. They had a bad problem with their shampoo bottles, and when they would leak, it would leak all over the people's groceries, and it's a huge financial thing for them. So we were able to solve those problems, and Procter became a very good client for a number of years until what we did became a strategic importance to them in all their products. And they set up an in-house group of a couple of hundred people to do that. But that was okay. By then we had already found other clients. But you know, we were never afraid of technical challenges. And so since you know, you in the consulting business, you kind of develop a reputation for what you do. And we were very active in ASME and other professional societies, and so that we would meet a lot of people who were in position to understand what we did and need our services, and that's kind of how the company has grown. So that's how we became so broad, and how we got offices in different places. It's because we had people we knew, many of them from ASME or from client relationships, who wanted to start an office for us. And so that's how the New Orleans and Cincinnati and Calgary offices came to be. But you know, integrating all those is a challenge. And the chief job that I had when we started doing all that as the president was to get everybody culturally on the same page. And so first of all, get the right mantra and the right metrics for how we deal with customers. You know, what everyone in Stress was focused on, the right answer on time, because the right answer is what they have to have, and if it's not on time, it's not worth anything to them. They've got a plant to run, or an assembly line to run. And so everybody in the company is focused on the right answer on time, and everybody's focused on the culture of the company, which is that we care about each other. Everybody shared in the profits, everyone in the company. So there was never a situation where the big guys are getting the money and the little guys don't make anything. And so it was always an egalitarian thing, and still is. When I left the company, about 10 years before I left the company, we started an ESOP, And so after I retired, the shares went to the ESOP, and the company is going on. Every employee's every employee is still an owner of the company. So those principles are you start with really good technical talent. You get everybody on the same page as to what the customer experience is supposed to be, and you take care to reward everybody properly, and focus on that culture. And I think that's the kind of the principles of stress.
Thank you, Joe. Paul, how do you go about forming an organizational culture?
Wow, yeah, it's a challenge, right? I mean, early on, you're so busy as a leader trying to find work, get new employees on payroll, meet the needs of your clients, and so. But it's something that you really have to focus on. You have to ensure that your culture, and Joe hit on this, that everyone is on the same page and that you treat people fairly, that everyone feels that they're not only part of a team, but they're part of a family. And we've been extremely fortunate in that regard. Our turnover rate in our organization has been extremely low over our 21-year history. We still have employees that were, employee number 5, 6, 7. They're still with us today. And I believe it's largely due to our culture. It's, we're a family. We work together, we win together. And like Joe, our organization also has a profit sharing plan. So if we do well, everyone benefits from that. And I think that's an important factor that sometimes is lost in larger organizations, right? So I think just providing a friendly and congenial work atmosphere. We have free snacks. Maybe that helps. But
it does.
So it's just creating an environment where people are drinking the Kool-Aid, they understand the mission, and they feel that they're part of a family moving forward.
Yeah, one of our early employees, he talks about culture of that's just how we do business. Michael, for you, how does bringing in funders affect the culture of a company?
That's a great question. And quite frankly, hopefully, in some cases, hopefully they don't affect your culture. I think the reality is that as a leader in the organization, you have to walk the talk. You have to be the person who's demonstrating the values. And even if you have an investor who doesn't share those values, you kind of have to shield your organization from that. There's a delicate balance between taking money from somebody who may affect your business. And in some cases, I would say to the young folks here, if there's sometimes you may have to say no to money because it's just not the right person investing in your business. And that's a real difficult challenge when you need the capital, but they don't share your values. They don't share your vision for what you're trying to accomplish in the marketplace. You're better off going to the next person than taking money, because that person is going to derail what you're trying to get accomplished. And that's certainly that's certainly what you don't want to do. I think the perfect situation is when somebody shares your values as a person, when somebody shares your values for what you're trying to do in the marketplace, when someone shares your vision of what you're trying to get executed. That's the perfect scenario to have as a partner, particularly as a financial partner.
Thank you so much. One of the things that I have found is that I have a bachelor and master's in mechanical engineering, and I've had to basically start studying a whole bunch of business books so that I can be able to communicate with the financial side of people. Joe, as a mechanical engineer that is in the business, how did you learn some of those business skills that maybe we didn't learn in college?
Yeah, well, like I said, life is a path-dependent journey. after we'd been in business at Stress for a number of years, our kids were in school, and my wife says, Joe, I want to do something, and I said, well, why don't you start your own business? So she started a Hallmark card and gift store, and grew to 3 stores, grew to be quite a business, and I was responsible for the finances of it. And so our first accountant, I hired him, and I sat down with him for a good while, and he taught me the fundamentals of accounting, that you needed to know. And when we started getting in, having a lot of significant contracts with these big companies, the same thing with our lawyer. Spent time with them to really understand what's going on and what are the risks. And fortunately, after the Stress had gotten to be a lot larger, I have a son who's a lawyer, and so he helps me guide that thing too. But you have to learn about cash flow. If a company runs out of cash, it's dead. That's what the accountant taught me. The cash is like the blood in your veins. When you don't have any more blood in your veins, and you don't have any more cash, your business is done. So you have to protect your cash, and just a few. So you have to watch the books every month. You have to be on top of it, and so engineers are naturally capable of doing that. They just need to know enough about accounting to understand profit and loss statements and income statements and balance sheets and where you get money. And so at Stress, we never had outside investors. We only investors we had was the bank, but the bank, you can only get money from them if you've got receivables that you can, or you're doing an equipment loan. So learning how banks work, what is it they're looking for, that was part of it. But engineers can, if they have a mind to do it, they can dig in and learn all that stuff.
Thank you, Joe. Paul, at what point is it better to get your MBA versus just hiring somebody that has that background or skill set? Because one person can't necessarily do everything in the company. So at what point do you study for yourself versus hire an outside expert?
Well, I think for me, Jared, I got my MBA through the School of Hard Knocks, right? OJT, on the job training. None of our founders had MBAs. We were fortunate enough to be a team of 3, and so we kind of divvied up responsibilities, and my partner, Melissa McCormick, drew the short straw and had to become our back office person. So handle the finance, the accounts payable, the payroll. She did all that back office stuff, even though she was an industrial engineer from Georgia Tech. Certainly not what she probably saw her career going towards when she became an engineer. But it worked really well for us. And we got to a point of maybe 12 or 13 employees when we said, we really need to seek professional help. And at that point, we were later in our career. Going back for an MBA might have been interesting and very insightful for sure. But I think at that point, we decided we needed to get help on the financial side. We needed more business modeling, more financial planning, the ability to better predict our pipeline, to kind of forecast what the next year would look like, as opposed to always looking, 3 to 6 months out. And so we actually hired a fractional CFO, which those are readily available these days. A lot of firms offer fractional CFO services, and we ended up with a great one. She's been amazing. She's really helped us on the financial side, and has certainly contributed to our growth. If through nothing else, just our ability to better forecast our financial situation further out. So in our case, we went the hire a professional route. And I've always said throughout my career, hire people smarter than you and get out of their way. And I think that was an example of that working really well.
Yeah, can I say, Paul, we did the same thing. We hired, I mean, we'd been in business maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. We hired our first CPA, you know, to run the financing, and now we have a staff that do it, and we have 2 or 3 in-house lawyers, and so you have to have people that are really professionally competent at those functions. That's
Absolutely.
exactly right. Some way or another, hire them or get them part-time like you're doing. There's a lot of different ways, but you have to have it.
Michael, one question that several people have is about presenting ideas to an investor. What's the best way to present to an investor in order to help share the idea and potentially gain an investor without the investor potentially taking that idea for themselves? How do you balance those two things?
Well, generally speaking, you sign a non-disclosure agreement, quite frankly, where you're not going to share your idea or your thought process until you have some kind of formal agreement in place that's confidential. It's not going anywhere, and signing non-disclosures are pretty standard, straightforward things in terms of discussion. So I would say to anybody, before you get into investor, make sure you have some kind of, but at a certain level, make sure you have a non-disclosure agreement in place. You know, when you're dealing with friends and family, that's a different scenario because you know those individuals, or if it's your uncle or that kind of thing. But once you start dealing with an external private equity firm or venture capital firm, you need to have an NDA in place to make sure you can have those kind of confidential conversations.
Thank you, Michael. Joe and Paul, many startups are looking for very experienced engineers who are the best in their field. What tips do you have for an early career engineer looking to get involved in a startup or early stage company?
Well, I talk to students about who want to start their own business, and what I tell them is that there's 2 factors that in doing that. It's the intersection of 2 circles, and one circle is it's the kind of work you like to do. So it needs to be the kind of work that you like to do. You enjoy doing it, whatever it is. And the other intersecting circle is you have to be able to make money at it. You don't want to be an expert in a low margin business. So you know, young people, all of them are different. Like for my wife, you know, she loves shopping, she loves retail. So for her, you know, running a chain of Hallmark card and gift stores was a natural. She's a Texas master florist. For me, I like doing really high end detail engineering problems, and it turns out there's a huge market for that. So it's about the market, and it's about what you like to do.
Jared, if I could comment on that, I think it's important for young people is network. You don't know who knows who.
Amen.
And so if you want to get involved in a startup or early stage company, tell people that, talk about it, because they may have an uncle who's starting something or a cousin who's starting something that if you don't open your mouth and tell them what you're interested in doing, you'll never know about it. So it is also about networking.
Yeah, so I guess I'm a little biased here, but I think small business or startups is the best place to work. I mean, it can be so rewarding. It's not for everyone. I mean, there's day-to-day changes and priorities. You know, I mentioned agility earlier. You really have to be agile. You have to be comfortable with that. And some of us as engineers, you know, we kind of like slow and steady, right? We kind of like sticking in our swim lane and never wearing another hat, you know, never going or thinking outside the box, as Dr. Burton said. So if you have that natural entrepreneurial spirit, you know, there's a couple options, like Joe and Michael said. You know, you can network and you can figure out a way to start your own business. But joining a small firm can also be a road to the same end, right? I joined a small firm of 3 people, became an employee, and then a few years later, I'm a partner. So you also have an opportunity to get in on the ground floor with something like a startup, and your career path can be extremely rewarding, both professionally and personally.
Thank you. And I think it's important for early career engineers and young engineers to not sell themselves short. If you have a good idea, and lots of you have amazing ideas that can change the world, you don't have to be 40 or 50 to be able to change the world. You can change it where you are right now. My business partner, when he was 25, had an idea and helped found a company called Certaris and grew it to almost $1 billion company before we started Voltagrid. You don't have to have and know everything, but you need to be passionate, and you need to be able to look for others that you can help bring into your team, to help bring in those skill sets that you might not have yet. Michael, how does participating in a professional society like ASME help when you're starting a business?
I think the most underutilized value of ASME is the networking capability. You have I believe inside ASME, there's a network of people that you can have a relationship with for the rest of your life, who bring enormous intellectual capability to you. You can pick up the phone and ask Paul, hey, what about X? Or you can pick up the phone and ask Joe, hey, about Y. That's what this society gives you over the life of your career. No matter from the day you graduate to the day you hang it up, you've got a set of professional people that you can tap into, or a set of resources that are available to you. And I think that's one of the most underutilized resources we have. So as you think about as an entrepreneur and you're participating in the student sections, you're going to be exposed to multiple people who have different skill sets, different capabilities. As you heard in the earlier session this morning, diverse thinking, diverse thought processes, that's all accessible to you as a person inside of ASME.
I'd like to second that. As I mentioned earlier, our participation in ASME and later in ASCE and the Society of Petroleum Engineers was huge. We met a lot of clients that way. We got a lot of friends that way. We got a lot of employees that way. And so the thing about the professional societies is that they are people made up of people like you. And so some of my best friends in the world are my ASME members, and I think that if you will participate, particularly on the local sections, that will stand you well.
Paul, do you have anything to add about how ASME has helped your company?
Oh, it's been amazing, Jared. To have a group of subject matter experts in virtually every area of mechanical engineering in your quiver when a problem arises is just so powerful. And I'll second everything that Michael and Joe said about the importance of networking and getting to know those folks. At one point I served on the board of governors with Charla Wise, a past president of ASME, who was the F-35 program manager with Lockheed. I mean, she is like a dream contact for me, right? I work in the defense aerospace business. I mean, there is very few other people in the world that I would want to meet more than someone in that position. So it's just, you never know who you're sitting next to in an ASME meeting. And if you take the time to get to know them, I'm confident that will be of value to you in your career, in your profession, in your business.
Thank you. One thing that I found is that in volunteering at ASME, that I was able to learn skills that also helped me in my career. I served as vice president of financial operations for one of ASME's organizations. That really helped me learn a whole lot more about the financial side of businesses. Joe, how has volunteering at ASME helped you in your professional career?
Well, tremendously. I, I, I became very active in the Offshore Technology Conference, and which is the largest technical conference in the United States, and when I was chair of it, and I went on the board as ASME's representative. And while I was on the board, we had 70,000 attendees a year, 2,500 exhibitors, 400 technical papers a year, all in the areas that Stress practiced. And so all of Stress's people became very active in ASME as well. That's where we met a lot of clients. We exhibited there, and so it's kind of like a family. It's a wonderful thing, and ASME has provided that for me my whole career. And I would encourage all the young people to do that. One of the things that it teaches you to do is to listen. You know, it's a skill that a lot of engineers are not very good at, and it's a critical life skill for developing customers and taking care of customers and managing employees is to learn to listen. So I think you can really develop those skills in ASME.
Michael, we have time for one last question, and we just got one from the audience that said, did you have to go through a process of pitching to investors and raising capital? How does one go about doing that? Can you maybe answer that for the audience?
Well, if you're, there's probably two steps, I would say. You need to have like a 30-second elevator pitch where you can communicate what you're trying to get done in a very short time to somebody who's going to ask you to spend some more time explaining what you're going to do. That's one. Secondly, there are a number of tools on the internet in terms of how to put together presentations, what's important, etc. And then I come back to the third point, which is asking people who around you who may know somebody who's in a financial firm or an investment firm to give you some coaching on how to put together your presentation deck. So those are the three potential steps I would tell people to go through in order to make sure they get their pitch right. But the most important thing is being able to communicate your idea to capture my attention in 30 seconds, because that's about all the amount of time you're going to get in a short kind of interaction with a potential investor.
Thank you, Michael. And everyone, we really appreciate everyone that joined us. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Paul, for being on the panel. And thank you all of the audience. And we'd like to thank you for coming to ASME, and invite you, if you're not an ASME member, to join ASME and come join the family. And good luck in all your entrepreneurial efforts. And we wish you the best of luck. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Jared. Good job. Yeah.